putting the spotlight on small businesses across America. This is Inside Business with Travis Filing and Gary Tharnish.
You're listening to Inside Business. Travis Filing, Gary Tharnish. How you doing this morning, Gary?
Hang on, I got to turn you down. Okay, I'm doing
loud.
really
You gotta
good.
Turn me way down.
I am doing good. Very good.
I probably don't even need this microphone if we just opened a studio window. Lincoln and Omaha would hear me.
That could possibly be true.
It's very true.
And you have very deep tones, so it's just like, "Wah." Anyway, aside from that, I'm doing great.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
How about you?
I'm doing good.
Good.
I'm doing really good.
Good.
Yeah, I've been kind of looking forward to our interview. We're talking with Jim Reiff today from Nebraska Enterprise Fund. Did I pronounce that right?
It's Reiff. But
Reiff? Okay. Well,
it works.
Today we'll call you Reiff.
Whatever.
No, I'm kidding you.
That works.
Jim Reiff from the Nebraska Enterprise Fund. So how you doing this morning?
Very good. Thanks, Travis and Gary. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So happy that you could make it in because I know, I mean, Nebraska Enterprise Fund, I've known about you guys for a long time. You do a lot of cool stuff. And before we dive into it, though, let's get a little background on you. Let's hear your story, how you got started. And
Sure thing. I don't even know where to start, to be honest, Travis. I grew up in rural Minnesota and wanted to see more of the world, like most of us that have grown up somewhere small. Ended up going to St. Olaf College. And from there, joined the Peace Corps, ended up in Nicaragua for a couple of years, worked with the health center. I'm not sure how I ended up at the health center, but I knew CPR and first aid. So did that for a couple of years, came back to grad school, got my master's degree, and then that kind of opened up the world, ended up in teaching in Lithuania business courses and
holy smokes,
back to Norfolk, Nebraska of all places, and then off to Albania, India, and Latin America, and back to Omaha and Nebraska.
Is there a direct flight from Lithuania to Norfolk?
Yes.
There is no direct flight. No.
That's a long one.
It's even
Jeez,
worse.
you've been all over the place.
Yeah, no kidding.
And now Lincoln.
Now Lincoln.
Or Lincoln. No, I don't know. Are you
He's
in
in
Lincoln?
Omaha.
You're in Omaha.
Omaha's easy.
Okay,
This is-
same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got to know, because we all have heard of the Peace Corps. I mean, everything I know about the Peace Corps is what I saw in the movie Airplane, which I'm pretty sure is not true.
It's a little bit
Right?
different.
Possibly, quite possibly not quite how it was.
Yeah, the Peace Corps was founded in the early 60s. One of JFK's initiatives. He wanted to give an opportunity for volunteers to work internationally. And so my group, there were about 20 of us. We were a second group back into Nicaragua after the fall of the Sandinista regime, the Ortega's in the 90s. We were back in 92. There were about 20 of us in our group. About 5 or 6 people did business. About 10 of us, 12 of us did small business. And then there were like 3 or 4 teachers. So we were assigned to I basically was put in a little village, worked with a health center, worked with the Red Cross, and left to my own devices. Most of the time it turned out good, but
So what did you do business-wise? Were you teaching people to start businesses or?
Not in Peace Corps. I was doing health. So I was doing little health talks. I helped set up a little Red Cross branch so that we raised money to buy an ambulance to build a little office for the Red Cross. You can imagine if without the ambulance, people had to find a way to get to the hospital. It was about 40 minutes away.
Oh man.
So that this really helped, and
probably not convenient to take a bus when you need to go to the hospital.
not at midnight.
Right.
And
A medical bus pass.
Yeah, that's right.
Non-existent.
That would
in
be my
Nicaragua,
luck.
I'm
I'd
sure.
cut my thumb off, forgot my bus pass at the house.
We would have just
It's
taped
hard to
your thumb up.
hitchhike without a thumb.
It is.
That's right.
For sure.
That's exactly it. And now, before you were in the Peace Corps, you were military, right?
Yeah. In high school, I'm in a small town, so I was looking for opportunities. I wanted to go to college. I did not want to come out with a ton of debt. So I joined the Army Reserve. I was in supply, did 6 years in reserves throughout college, helped pay for college, gave me a great experience. And it was funny because I went to one of the colleges. There were 3 others of us that were in the Guard or Reserve, and everybody was like, what's this guy doing in khakis coming into school?
And did you have to serve after You were done with college? Did you have to do active?
For my thing, it was a 6+2. So 6 years of active reserves and then 2 years of inactive. So I was actually in Peace Corps after the 6 years of active reserves.
Okay. Is that a common trend, military to the Peace Corps? That doesn't feel like.
There was one other guy. He served in the Marine Corps before. And so it was just 2 of us out of about 25 that started. He left early, but no, it's very rare.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So then
it's a twist.
After the Peace Corps, how long were you in the Peace Corps?
That's 2 years.
Oh, 2 years.
2 years.
All right.
Yep.
And then what'd you do after that?
I came back and then ended up going to graduate school in economic development out in Philadelphia, learning some of the ins and outs. It was more of a community-based economic development study. So we were looking at how do you get these communities to do better. And I think that really starts to open your eyes. Community development's one thing, but when you start to see people develop their businesses and grow their businesses, they become profitable, they can afford to take care of families, send their kids to school, it makes a difference.
Yeah. And then once you got your degree, you went back overseas, your MBA.
Yep. It was a master's degree. Then I went back. One of my professors taught in Lithuania once every J term. So he goes, Jim, do you want to go for what was going to be a semester? It turned out to be a year and a half. So I taught introduction to business and some economics classes for a year and a half in Lithuania in 1995. So about 5 years after the wall fell.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
man, you have had an interesting career path.
Yeah. I went to Crete.
I live in Panama, so
that's true. I've been to Panama.
Of course, you've been all over the world.
Well, both
Love
Panamas.
Yeah,
I've only been to the one in Nebraska.
Yeah, I actually watched the eclipse with Travis in Panama. So
yeah,
nice.
That a long time ago.
That was fun though.
And then, so what's teaching business in Lithuania? What's that? How's the culture? I mean, the business culture, how's it different?
The cultures, they were trying to find a path away from the Soviet system.
Mm-hmm.
So this was a startup college by some Mennonite teachers and professors that had taught at different Mennonite schools. And the Lithuanian government actually invited them in because they wanted an alternative to what had traditionally been the Soviet system. The students I taught were first or second year of graduation, so a lot of them took risks to come to the school. It is now a full university recognized by Lithuania. It's really cool. My youngest daughter actually went there for a year for her first year and then went to UNL and graduated there last year. But I talked to one of the students and friends that I taught with, and she goes, Jim, do you remember you taught that class on introduction to business? I still have that business plan. So we were teaching students how to think. They came in and were doing an accreditation for the school the year I was there, and the school administrators came in and said, this is different because in the Soviet system, everybody was told what you have to study. And if you want to get a master's degree, you got to read these things. You got to write an article on these things. We were telling our students, no, you choose what you want to study, but you also need to go out and research, interview some people, learn what they're doing. So we were teaching them the traditional creative thinking style within a context at the time. English, business, and theology were the 3 majors they had.
Yeah, conceptually it'd be completely different, right? Because in the Soviet, it's from the top down. It's all central control in Moscow. Tell you what to think, do what. Every building's the same color, so on and so forth. Now all of a sudden you're in a situation where it's like we're going to create a government that's local on up. Right. And that's a whole different world. Any kind of local control is completely.
Yeah. Except, Gary, the only difference is you got it almost all right, but some of the buildings had 11 stories, others had 9, and others had 7. But otherwise, yes.
Well, I remember when my daughter was studying in Prague and I got out of the airport and on the bus going into town, and it was like, man, it's this really just kind of drab. The architecture's like Prague was supposed to be really cool. It's just like gray. And then all of a sudden you get into the inner zip codes. You go, here we go.
Yep. Yeah.
Pre-communism.
Old towns are great, but the suburbs are
Yeah.
11, 7 or 9 full stories. And
Yeah. It's
predictable.
bizarre how it's just very typical.
I think of the TV show. Did you guys ever watch Idiot Abroad?
Yes.
And when he's going through the
Right.
old communist bloc, he's like,
Yeah.
why are we even filming this in HD? Everything is it's just gray and bland.
It
and
is. It's so
It's
bland.
like, and it
Yeah.
really did. It really looked like it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
was Lithuania then, they were communist. Were they changing from that?
Yeah. Remember, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, the Baltics,
Right.
were actually free countries until the Soviets took them over in World War II. So they still had a mindset and they still had an interest in entrepreneurship, where some of the other countries that had been integrated into the Soviet system hadn't been free. So they didn't have any generations that remembered that freedom. But the Lithuanians still did, the Latvians still did, Estonians still did.
We could do an entire show on this.
Yeah. Be interesting.
Which we should probably take a look at that somewhere down the road. But we have a break coming up, so let's run to that real quick. And when we get back, I want to talk a little bit about Nebraska Enterprise Fund and just kind of give us a 30,000-foot view from there. So you're listening to Inside Business. Travis Filing, Gary Tharnish. We're talking with Jim Reiff from the Nebraska Enterprise Fund, and we will be right back.
Gary Tharnish.
And we're back on Inside Business. Travis Filing, Gary Tharnish, talking with Jim Reiff from the Nebraska Enterprise Fund. Man, we didn't even get to Latvia and all the other places that you lived. Give us just a brief overview of those.
Well, after Lithuania, I actually came back to the U.S. and worked in Norfolk for about a year and a half, working with the Economic Development District, running their revolving loan fund. Then I ended up overseas again in Albania, right after some of the worst riots and stuff. We were setting up a microfinance company. When I left, we went from 1,000 or so clients to 5,500. Then I went to India and took a small nonprofit and we converted it into a microfinance company, and then worked some in Latin America, and then back to Nebraska. People ask how to get here, and it's like when your parents give you their address, you come back wherever you can land. So it's my parents' fault. They kept sending me the address.
So other than that, you really haven't done much. Like that's 12 lives or
Yeah,
something,
right.
It's
Yes.
like, my goodness. Wow. That is absolutely amazing. So you end up in Omaha, and now we have the Nebraska Enterprise Fund. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. The Nebraska Enterprise Fund's been around about 31, 32 years.
Okay.
And set up originally by Gene Severance. And he set it up to help other micro development organizations. They were having a hard time finding funding. So before my time, obviously, but ironically, the Northeast Economic Development District borrowed money from NEF. It wasn't called NEF at the time, but we were able to take that money and then on-lend it to other businesses. So over its history, NEF has helped start or finance over 21 other organizations. So that's one thing that people don't realize is really cool about the organization. But about 2010, we started doing individual loans, so lending money to individuals and providing them either with direct lending or capital. But the other thing that is really important is we're what's called a CDFI, a Community Development Finance Institution. And so we're certified actually by the U.S. Department of Treasury. And every year we have to demonstrate that we're meeting our target market. Our target market is all of Nebraska, urban and rural, as well as a few cut out in Southwest Iowa. And then we also serve the veteran community through the SBA. We're the host of what's called the Veterans Business Outreach Center, the VBOC.
So you're funded by both Nebraska and the federal government?
Right now, there's a little bit of things going on with some of the Business Innovation Act, but we traditionally have got generous funding from the state. We've got funding from the federal government in different ways. And we also leverage money. So that means we basically borrow money and take the risk on as NEF, and so that we can lend it to the small business, so the small business can have access.
So I'm a solopreneur and I want to get started in my business and I need funding. I can come to you instead of the SBA, or are we kind of tied together a little bit?
The SBA, we have SBA microloans, so we have a product up to 50,000. We're also working on a product called the Community Advantage. That's an SBA project as well, or program as well. It's very similar to a 7A, but it's more for companies that aren't quite ready for a 7A, or maybe the bank's not ready. So it might be a startup that's like 2 years or less, a rural business, military affiliated business, things like that.
So do you help a solopreneur know what to do or how to apply, or is it real super complicated? Or
it can be complicated because it's business, right? But no, we do. We have a team. We have some training people, client development folks that will reach out. If you show interest, they'll reach out. They'll get you into a program. We call it Growth Wheel. And with that, there's courses you can take. There's modules to set up a business plan. There's also 80 different modules to help you with marketing or with your finances or whatever it might be. We also do training. This week or earlier in the week on Tuesday, we did a training with the Omaha Chamber of Commerce on QuickBooks. We do that regularly, about 4, 5, 6 of those a year. We do it across the state.
Nice.
We do virtual training. Like we met in Kearney, we're at events with other partners like Grow Nebraska and so forth as well, periodically.
Sure.
Now, I read something, I think it was on the website, that you said you guys specialize in working with businesses that are not quite bankable. Is that right?
That's the way I describe it. And the reason I say that is actually, it was funny. One time I was asked, are you competing with the bank? And I said, no, we don't have enough capital to compete with the bank. We actually see the banks as our best friends, because there's 3 things that happen. One is we get a lot of referrals from banks for somebody that just they've got a good business idea, but they just don't fit the bank model today. Mm-hmm. And there's all kinds of reasons for that. The first being that the banks are regulated more tightly than we are, because you got to remember the banks are taking deposits. Mm-hmm. The second thing is sometimes we work with the bank, so the bank will give part of a loan, but they can't do the whole thing. So we see that happen a lot, where somebody's starting, they get some real estate, they need some equipment, and they need working capital. Well, for the bank, real estate's the easiest thing to lend on.
Mm-hmm. Right. Sure.
Equipment's fairly easy. Working capital, maybe a little less. So maybe the bank does 50% or 60%. Maybe we do 30%. And then the entrepreneur can bring in the last little bit.
So bank is kind of first position.
First position. We subordinate our loans to the bank, because that way they stay in first position, good with the regulators. And then the third way is a direct loan. So if somebody's not 100% bankable, we can give that loan directly to them.
And you could probably help bring a loan across the finish line for the bank.
We've done that. There's been deals, especially there's a product where we have to have bank match. And there's been cases where the bank has been able to do most of it, but they couldn't do the whole thing. One example, I could give you multiple, but one example, for whatever reason, a lot of reasons, but the bank couldn't get an SBA guarantee because of some property. They couldn't get a USDA guarantee. So the bank said, well, there's enough asset here to collateralize, but we can't meet our numbers. So they did half of it. We did half of it. And that meant a business was able to get the loan to grow, to transfer and then grow. Mm-hmm. And that's just one example.
Wow. Nice. That's awesome. And then beyond loans, you guys also, like you said, you do training.
Yep.
What other kind of, you were talking about QuickBooks. What other kind of training do you guys do?
We've done QuickBooks. We've done, I think I can say transformation marketing's come in with us, and done training on social media before. We do marketing training. We've done QuickBooks, or obviously we've done Excel training. So a lot of times we see older generations or first or second generation folks that are nervous about using Excel and just using computers. So we've done that skill training. We've done legal trainings.
And it's so helpful because especially when you're a solopreneur, when you're the only one there and you hang out your shingle, now I have to become an expert in all these different topics, which is just impossible to do.
What about if someone, not to mention names, Gary, like wanted to learn a little bit more about Excel? Can I do that, or is there a fee to learn that? How does that is that at all possible?
Yeah, when we do that training, that particular one is free. There's only 1 or 2 trainings we actually charge a small fee, and it's not a big fee. Like the QuickBooks, we do have to charge a small fee, but it's less than $40.
Sure.
So it's
Cool. That's good to
definitely
know.
reachable, and you can get it.
And anybody can sign up for it?
Anybody can sign up for it. We do need your zip code just because of demographics, but
Sure.
otherwise we give us as much or as little about the rest of your demographics you want to.
So do you work with only Nebraska businesses?
Nebraska, Southwest Iowa, and then through the VBOC,
Okay.
the veteran community. So, and the cool thing about the VBOC is the veterans are veteran and military affiliated family members. So
Oh, wow.
we get a wide
Sweet.
range.
That
So
covers
our
a lot.
listeners across the river can check you out, and
You mean the Platte River or the Missouri
the
River?
Missouri River.
Okay, had to
Or the
check.
Platte River.
I mean,
It's a
I
whole
know. This
we're a
is-
whole different world
this
over
is
here.
Omaha, Lincoln, got to get the right river. Yes, either river, you're more than welcome to check us out.
Fantastic. Well, we have a break coming up here, so let's run to that real quick. You're listening to Inside Business. Travis Filing, Gary Tharnish, talking with Jim Reiff from the Nebraska Enterprise Fund. And when we come back, it's 5 takeaways time. Stick around.
And Gary Tharnish.
And we're back on Inside Business. Travis Filing, Gary Tharnish, talking with Jim Reiff from the Nebraska Enterprise Fund. And it's 5 takeaways time. So this is 5 pieces of advice that we hand off to our listeners that they can apply to our business. And I kind of like your theme. It's what it takes to become bankable. And that is probably information I wish I would have had when we started our business. So let's go ahead. Let's just jump right into it. What is that first piece of advice you want to hand off to new entrepreneurs?
Probably the first thing is look at your niche, find your niche. What are you going to be really good at? Industry does matter, but there's always a niche. Even in a bad economy or a bad business, there's always a niche. And somebody said it perfectly. I heard it just a couple weeks ago. There's still blacksmiths out there.
There are.
There's
Yeah.
not as many, but there's still blacksmiths, or there's still folks making saddles for horses or whatever. So there's still niches out there. So find your niche and then find the traction. Test your market. If you're going to sell t-shirts, will people buy your design? I had one guy one time, "Oh, Jim, people love my t-shirt when I give it away." It's like, well, have you taken it to a weekend market to test the market? So test the market, get some traction, find out what works. Usually what your idea isn't what actually sells. It might sell some, but you end up having to ebb or flow or adjust and find a new place.
And so many times we've talked to brand new entrepreneurs, and either on the show or just in general who come up and talk to us. And a lot of them, they don't really do that. Sometimes they just hang out their shingle and go for broke.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's usually broke.
It is often broke. And there's a book, I forget who wrote it, but Fail Fast.
Yeah.
And that's the whole idea of traction. Is if it's not getting traction, let's figure out how do we adapt it, change it, or change our concept. All 3 are legit to do.
Yeah. And when you're talking about becoming bankable, if you have, let's say you are a saddle maker,
yeah,
you really are going to have to explain your story either to you or to your loan officers or to a bank. And you're going to have to show that market is there.
Absolutely. And in the case of somebody that's that niche, they probably would start with somebody like us or one of our partners in the ecosystem. And they'd say, can I get enough money to do a year's worth of work? Mm-hmm. And what our goal is they take a loan or small injection of capital, And 2 or 3 years later, and this has happened to me, I've gotten calls from bankers and say, Jim, what about one of the guys his name was Justin. Jim, what do you know about Justin? And it's like, is there a problem? Yeah, I want to take his loan over and I want to take your loan out. And it's like, hey, that's what we want to be. We're one of those few organizations. We don't want repeats. We want them to move up into the banking sector.
Yeah, because you guys just want to help starting businesses
or growing ones, but we want them to grow to the next level.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. What's that second piece of advice you want to hand off?
Takeaway 2.
Yeah.
Takeaway 2. Oh yeah. One of the things, cash flow. It sounds crass, but cash is king. And I've seen over and over, you see people forget that they need to have a cash. It's easy to say, I'm selling a bunch, I'm putting a lot out there, but are you collecting your receivables? Are you getting paid for what you're doing? The other thing on the cash flow is, remember, you've got several people you have to pay. One is you have to pay your operating expenses, your rent, your insurance, your advertising. The second one we remind people is you've got to pay yourself. Okay. In Nebraska, we're fortunate or unfortunate, either way, but we got $15 an hour minimum wage. That's $30-some thousand a year. So I tell people, ask yourself, maybe year one's going to be hard, but by year 2, you've got to be making more than minimum wage. Otherwise, why are you in this business? Yeah. And then if you do take a loan, that's the third aspect, is you've got to be able to pay the cash flow of covering the loan. So
yeah,
that's where being bankable is a challenge when you start.
Oh yeah,
right there. And especially sometimes when you are buying an existing business, the existing business's P&L can look great. It can also include the affordability of paying a loan back.
Right.
That can be a challenge. And that's where you could step in as a partner, right?
Right.
Okay.
And we also would recommend in that case, somebody goes to, like, NBDC has a program called Buy Side where you can get an evaluation. So you make sure that whoever's selling the business isn't selling it in a detrimental position. Because the worst thing, Gary, is somebody pays more for that business and is over indebted and can't get out of it. And the business, we lose the business. And we don't, let's face it, we don't want to lose any more businesses across the state.
Yeah.
Sure.
And paying yourself is tough. I mean, that's one thing that I think a lot of entrepreneurs, it's like when we started out, I paid myself $100 an hour once a week, and the other 39 or the other 100 were free.
I know your boss too.
Yeah. She's definitely a taskmaster, but it gets really hard. And you have to, at some point, go, okay, I'm not making anything. I need to start thinking about paying myself.
Yes. And we encourage, year one's always going to be tough. It's just reality, but you need to figure what is that pathway and how do I get there?
Yeah.
The sooner the better, obviously.
Definitely. What's your third takeaway?
One of the things we talked a little bit, people sometimes think banks are the bad guy. The banks aren't the bad guy. Actually, like I said earlier, banks are our best friend because they provide capital to us. They provide technical assistance to us. They provide clients to us. We provide clients to them. One of the challenges you have to remember is finding the right bank. Because, if you're trying to run a small business, you got to find a bank that understands small business or a banker inside that bank.
Mm-hmm.
I can pick on the big green bank. Well, if you go to an egg lender at that bank, they may not understand the commercial side. You go to the commercial side, they won't understand the egg side. So finding the right banker within that bank. And remember, too, that the bank has a regulator. So they have to do certain things
a certain way.
Lots of rules. And they get investigated and evaluated and audited every 3 years or so based on that. So they have to run a process, and that process has to meet compliance.
Yeah. And people don't really realize, banks are really loaning depositors money out.
That's
so
right.
You're making an investment.
Yeah.
And the depositor is really relying on that bank to make a good investment to not lose my money.
Sure. Would you like to
Exactly.
take your money every week to a bank and deposit it if you knew they could just loan it to anybody without
Yeah,
whatever?
right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Rules are good in that way.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, we still underwrite it, but we have more leeway. We can evaluate collateral differently. You know, we can look at and try to help folks. And that's one of the things we can do too, is we have more time to actually sit with a client and work and understand their situation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when you I'll wait until the next segment to ask this question. What is your fourth takeaway?
Small businesses need to find a good coach or a good mentor for all kinds of reasons. One, you already brought up, Travis, a small business owners wearing 5, 6, 10 different hats.
Mm-hmm.
You know, 1 minute you're wearing the finance hat, next minute you're wearing the compliance hat, next minute you're trying to keep HR going, then you're supposed to be an expert in marketing, and then you're supposed to know how to price and be a product photographer. I can go on, but you need to have coaches. You need to know where your expertise is and what you enjoy doing.
Mm-hmm.
When I graduated high school, one of my teachers said it, and then also working in Albania, one of my consultants said it. And they said, Jim, you don't need to have all the answers. You need to know when and where to get the right answer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what a coach is going to do for you. And the coach is also going to stretch you. The other thing you hit on it earlier, both of you did, is it can be lonely. And if you're a small business, you may or may not have somebody that you can bounce the idea off that you trust, unless you have a coach or a mentor that you can pick up the phone once in a while and say, hey, I'm thinking about this. What do you think about it?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you just need to vent.
Yeah, and that's one common denominator. Another one that's a thread through our show. We hear it all the time with people where it's like it can be so lonely, and then you get caught up in it and it just kind of ruminates and builds on itself, and all of a sudden you just feel like you're going to explode because there's all of this going on. When having that person, you can make the phone call to her, say, hey, this is what I'm going through. Have you been through it? What's your suggestion? Real networking can work with that when people are real with it. But it is important to have that one person or a coach or somebody that just kind of takes over, helps you with that big time.
And you don't want that person to be the biggest cheerleader in the room.
Right.
You also don't want that person to be a family member that's you're never going to make a go at this. You need to find somebody that's neutral and level-headed about it.
Yeah.
And the other thing, back to your networking, what we find in some of our training classes, by the time some of the class attendees come together, after they're in training for 3-4 hours together, they know they can solve each other's problems better than the instructor can.
Yeah.
So back to the real networking where I'm developing skill and I'm developing connection.
Well, I'm on a real estate team, and one thing I love about Amy, my team lead, is that she will tell me the good, the bad, and the ugly. And like last week, we had to have an ugly, and she feels bad about it afterwards, but she's really good at just saying it. And then I'm like, it's good for me to hear. Like, it ended up helping me so much because I was just down in the weeds, going 90 miles an hour with a lot of different transactions, and it's easy to get so caught up that you're not looking at the bigger picture. You know. And then and she was like, oh, I hope that didn't sound harsh. I said, no, it sounds great. Like, you need to be told sometimes, hey, you know, you do. This isn't going to work if you go down, if you keep doing this.
Right. And you need somebody, just like you said, bounce ideas off of, because you can get caught up. You can get so far down in the muck that you have the blinders on, you're just charging forward, and you don't stop to think that maybe this is a bad idea, or maybe there's a better angle to go.
Right. 100%. And you want to be working on the business, not just in the business.
Yeah.
A lot of entrepreneurs start out because they're really good at a product or a service, and they may not have some of the other details. So how do you get somebody that can help you think through all of those issues?
Yeah. And you see that too. You see business owners who've been in business for 20, 30 years who are still working in the business.
Yeah.
It's because you didn't spend time working on the business.
Yeah. Right.
And that can be heart-wrenching to have those conversations. And you need somebody from the outside to go, okay, time to start handing off some of this control to some of these other people.
Yes. And it can be hard to do that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, very much so. Because
Oh,
you feel
yeah.
like they may not do it 100% like you do it. What you don't realize is the 20% that's different might be better.
Yeah. Usually
That's what I found out.
It's
I was
way
like,
better.
ooh,
Yeah.
I should have done
I
this
learned
years
that
ago.
too.
Yeah.
Well, let's hit that last piece of advice. What's your fifth takeaway?
Access to capital is difficult. And, you have to work at it. You have to get ready for it. So you just can't walk in and expect the world to give you $1 million or 50,000 for that matter. You have to start doing the planning, create your idea, be able to articulate it, understand what you need that capital for. So if you go into the bank or come to us, the discussion I hate the most is, what's your maximum? Oh, that's what I need. And it's like, what do you need it for?
That's a credit card mentality.
Yes.
Can you raise my maximum?
That really is.
Yep, it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
It is really a hangover from that. Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people who think just because they have a great idea, the world's just going to shower them with gold coins.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Well,
that
you
way.
were touching that at the beginning. You have to test your market, test your product. You might think it's the best thing in the world, but no one else does.
Yeah. Well, we joked when I ran the program in Albania, we had a lot of food businesses because these were folks just scraping by to get family, feed their families.
Yes. Yeah.
And we joked at the end because we had so many people that wanted to set up a restaurant. We said, you got to realize just because you cook great food doesn't mean somebody's going to pay to eat your food. So you got to have something.
Yeah. And I mean, no kidding. We have a friend that grew up in Romania and it was under communist rule till he was, I think 12 or maybe 13 or 14. But he remembers as a child, as young as 3-year-old, that his responsibility was to get up in the morning, 3 a.m., go down to the food line, and he would sit there until it opened up so he could be up front. So hopefully there might be a little bit of meat left. Usually maybe got two things, period, maybe flour, maybe, wheat. I mean, whatever it was. And you hear stories like that and you just think, so when, of course, the wall fell and then they became a free country, there was so much to learn.
Yeah.
And that's the interesting thing. I mean, they might have had the mentality, but they had to learn how it worked.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Or even just the concept of that, where it's not controlled by someone else. And there's a lot of, well, what am I supposed to do instead of, oh, this might work. You know, the creative thought's not there.
Interesting. Well, that was 5 takeaways. Let's run to a break here real quick. You're listening to Inside Business with Travis Filing and Gary Tharnish, talking with Jim Reiff from the Nebraska Enterprise Fund, and we will have more right after this break.
And Gary Tharnish.
We're back on Inside Business. Travis Filing, Gary Tharnish, talking with Jim Reiff from the Nebraska Enterprise Fund, and want to talk a little bit about why businesses fail to get funded. Do you see? Is there a common thread that you see with businesses?
So there's all kinds of reasons. Obviously, one thing though, oftentimes they fail to plan. You see people come in, I want this, I need this right now. It's like, let's slow down. What do you need it for?
Yeah.
We've got people that come in, they want to do a renovation, but they don't know what the cost of the renovation is. Well, I think it'll be about 50,000. It's like, okay,
Guess again.
about 55 or about 43. And
Yeah.
it goes both ways. Sometimes they're too high, sometimes they're too low.
Yeah.
And that's one of the problems though, too, because if you borrow more than you need, you're paying interest on that. You have obligation that you need to make. So that means your break even goes up and so forth. So the planning, not knowing their numbers for whatever reason, a lot of small businesses are scared of the numbers. In today's world where everything's so automated and everything, you just need to know what your numbers are and plug it into the right place. There's really simple spreadsheets that if you use them, they'll help you come up with a 3-year projection. They give you enough room that you can say, the one I'm thinking of, it's done by Score, and it's like 7 pages. But if you plug and play, and you can create scenarios, you can say December is going to be a high month and January is going to be a low month. So it gives you a
Seasonals,
lot
yeah.
of room.
Yeah.
We talked about that. all
Yeah,
the
we
time.
talked about that a ton, especially when you own the flower shop. I mean, that's
hugely
ebbs and flows are
huge difference.
and same in marketing.
And I also remember when I went to get my first loan, 24 years old, I knew I was good at what I did and loved what I did. And I could tell them all about everything I was going to do and how great it was going to be, but I couldn't quite tell them how I was going to fund it, rent. I mean, and I left there and went, it'll be a month or two before I go back to somebody else. I have a lot of homework to do.
Yeah.
And I was even buying an existing business, but still.
Yeah. Well, and even the existing business, you're bringing a new energy. You're bringing a new vibe to it. So a lot of the businesses, the reason they're selling is somebody's come to the end of their career or they want to transition out. So the business isn't necessarily at its top. So if you're buying a new business or buying the business, you're creating a whole different culture, a whole different atmosphere. You're taking what somebody created, but you're hopefully elevating it to the next level. So
I think the biggest shock, because I've been told no by banks, I mean, constantly. That's all part of the game.
Oh, you should have taken Shannon.
Yes. Yeah, nobody will tell her no. But I think the biggest lesson I got, I remember we bought a building that we're currently in, and I paid cash for it, right? So I got equity in this building, and I wanted to do this whole revamp because the building was awful.
it was too.
And it was terrible. Yeah. And I went to get a loan, and I mean, I had no plan. I had kind of built some offices in here, need a little concrete, probably going to need some insulation, some electrical, and I need a loan, and I think it's going to cost about $150,000. And the bank went, "You have no plan."
Yeah.
Like just give me $150,000. I own this building. I mean, it was really,
I could see, but in your mind, that's how you work. You know how to do all of that. You know what needs to be done. And I can see that.
right. But from the banker's perspective,
sure.
You're going, who's this yahoo? And what?
Well, and this is a problem though. A lot of people can do the work, but they don't plan for it. So they go in, well, what happens when you run into the first problem? You know, maybe a pipe needs to be replaced that is outside of your expertise, or you need to have an ADA compliant restroom or something like that. Then all of a sudden you're talking 10, 15% overruns. In one city that I live in, sometimes one planner says one thing, another planning inspector says something else. So you have overruns just for that. I probably shouldn't have said that, but that's
no, that happens. Though.
Yeah,
it really happens.
I know it happens.
And I think too, one of the mistakes I made was actually paying cash for the building. I should have wrapped it all up into a loan and then had some reserves sitting by. But I thought, well, I own the building. La-di-da, come shower me with money because I own a building.
And that's the whole thing about we said earlier, but the cash flow. How do I manage my cash flow? And what am I buying with my cash? A building's got a 20 to 40 year life at least.
Right.
So that might make more sense financing than your working capital. So,
well, and having them walking me through going, okay, so you're going to build, I think it was we built a film studio and an audio studio, and then we put in like 8 offices. And then it was, okay, you already have most of this stuff. So why is this building now having this? How is it going to pay? How is it going to make you more productive? How is it going to make you more money to pay this loan back? Because you don't really think about all those things.
Yeah. And that's a great point. I don't care what you're buying. I want people in small business to think, what's my return on investment? So if I'm buying a piece of equipment for $50,000, let's just say I can take a loan for that. It's going to probably be with interest, maybe 65 to 70,000 after 5 years with interest. That means you want to make at least double that, because otherwise you just bought a piece of equipment. But what am I doing that's returning my investment? I mean, right now we can put money in the stock market and do somewhere in 6 to 10% fairly easily. So why are we investing our money to make 1%? We need to be investing our money to make more than that.
Yeah.
So if there's a business out there that's just starting to get to the point where they're getting ready to go to the bank, would it be smart for them to come to talk to you first just to help sharpen their game?
They can come talk to us. They can go to a SCORE chapter. I know Lincoln and Omaha both have SCORE chapters. They can go to NBDC, Nebraska Business Development Center.
Mhm.
There's one both in Omaha and in Lincoln. Talk to somebody or talk to a bank, but don't necessarily just talk to one banker. Remember, some bankers are going to be experts in some spaces, and we're fortunate in Nebraska. We have some really, really great community banks and local banks, but it's okay to talk to 2 or 3 different banks as well. In that, obviously, all of us can name we can name some really good banks. We can name some really good bankers right now, and so it doesn't matter which order, but maybe just start out just chatting with a banker or an expert and saying, here's what I'm thinking. Have you seen a business like this? Have you seen somebody do really well? That's the other benefit, honestly, of a bank is most bankers, they've seen everything because they have bankers that have been in the bank for 40 years. They've seen ups and downs and cliffs and valleys. Nothing surprises them.
Yeah.
But if it specializes in ag and you're going to do industrial renovation, you may not. They may not be. They may be. It just depends. But
yeah. Well, and it might be one of the banks, but it may be somebody that's located in a different location too.
Yep, sure.
See, and that's where, like, one of our sponsors down in Lincoln is Western National, and they're in small towns. They're not exclusively business, but they really get business. So if you're in business or real estate, they understand it so well. And just sitting down and talking with them, they'll walk you through a lot of the steps.
Yeah. And remember, us as lenders, we want the same thing. We charge an interest rate. That's the only upside for us. So I tell our clients, look, get rich, pay us off, pay the interest you agreed to, but make a bunch of money. We want you to make money, actually, because it's good for our economy. It's good for our neighbors and communities.
Yeah. And then when you grow, you're going to come back for an expansion loan or buy a vacation house or whatever it is.
House, everything.
Absolutely.
Trickles.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Well, we have another break coming up here, so let's run to that. And when we come back, this needs an adjustment. You're listening to Inside Business. Travis Filing, Gary Tharnish, talking with Jim Reiff from the Nebraska Enterprise Fund, and we will have more right after this.
Gary Tharnish.
We're back on Inside Business. Travis Filing, Gary Tharnish, talking with Jim Reiff from the Nebraska Enterprise Fund, and it's time for This Needs an Adjustment. So what, and I appreciate the notes here, because your This Needs an Adjustment was things that business owners misunderstand about money. What, tell us a little bit about that. What's your thoughts behind that?
First thing is underestimating. I forget about the politics, but I recommend people think about conservatism in an accounting sense, which means always underestimate what you think you're going to sell and always overestimate what you think it'll cost.
Yep.
Because what you want to do at the end of the year is say, I got that wrong. I actually sold 10% more, and I got that wrong because I was able to cut 5% off of my expense, so my profit is bigger. What you do not want to get to at the end of the year is find out, oh, I spent more than I brought in.
Yeah.
So that law of just estimating, and along with it, run scenarios. With today's world, we can use spreadsheets. You can do a best case, a great case, and a worst case, and know what that's going to take. And then I like to tell people, once you know that, start to build out your break even. Understand what it takes to get you to your break even. So if you have $150,000 break even, how many do I need to sell per day? How many do I need to sell per week? Okay, we're halfway through May right now. Well, you take your break even and say by June, I need to be to 75,000. If I'm only at 10,000, I can still adjust because it's not December yet. But if I wait till November and say, oh, I'm behind by 110,000, it may be too late. So the sooner you know that, the better you estimate what it is, the better you're going to be able to manage it. Along with that, know your numbers. A lot of people are scared again. get onto QuickBooks, get onto one of the accounting platforms, use it, get good at it. You don't need to be perfect at it, but get good at it. And then back to our coaching, ask somebody, meet with somebody once a month, once a quarter, checking and just look at your numbers. Make sure, do they make sense? I had a boss once doing international microfinance. This guy Ken was his name. He's an economic accounting genius, really. He could look at a balance sheet and he'd find the three things you didn't want him to find.
Sounds like Tim.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
Within 30 seconds. And it's like, boop, boop, boop. But you want somebody like that can say, hey, this number doesn't look quite right. This number doesn't look, something's wrong. You can do some of that with AI, but you still need somebody that knows and has the experience to do that as well.
Mhm.
Yeah. At the beginning of that, you were talking about just setting your expectations correctly, right? Basically. So expect, less. And if you have more, that's great. Don't just go like, I've got to get here or whatever. That's a life lesson in everything, right? You talk to people that are having relationship problems. Half the time it's like, well, what's your expectations with this relationship, right?
Mhm.
It's happening over and over because you keep going back thinking you expect this. So set your expectations at 0. You'll be surprised with whatever you get. But that's important in business, I think. I see new realtors that are like, I want to do 3 million in sales this year, and then when they don't, they're just depleted, So it's like let's just say you want to do 6 transactions. Let's start with something like that.
Yeah.
It's easier than setting it on the money side.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I'm looking at somebody's business plan for him, and he wants to do a certain kind of business. And he did exactly that. He said, I'm going to sell 6 a month, year 1. So instead of selling one
X
a
number of
day,
dollars or whatever.
I'm gonna sell this many per month. Just 1.5 a month, and then taking it the next step. If you get behind 1 week, adjust before you get behind a whole month.
Mhm.
And if you get
There you
behind a
go.
month, adjust before you get behind 12 months.
There's the mindset factor
Yeah.
because that's very important as well.
And I love the spend less. I mean, it's kind of the whole live within your means type. We kind of brushed on that quickly, but I always think too, like professional athletes, right? They have these $1 million paychecks that roll in, but they live beyond their means. So their $1 million paychecks are supporting their $2 million lifestyle. And pretty soon, in their instance, the checks are going to dry up. Well, it happens in business too.
Yeah.
Trends change, the economy changes. And if you are bringing in whatever, a $50,000 a month to support a $60,000 a month lifestyle, you're going to be on the bad end of that real quick.
Sometimes people in my buyers consultations are a little surprised that I will say, okay, well, you're qualified to 320, but let's try to get you in something at 290 or 300, because you don't know. I mean, a bank is going to say, here's the maximum debt to income you can have. This is what you have now. This is the difference.
Right.
We'll go to that. And so it's like, do you really want to live a maximum debt lifestyle? Like, what is your, anything can happen.
Right. Yeah. Because pretty soon you're sitting on pillows in the living room because you can't afford a couch.
Yeah. And I show houses like that.
I'll bet
It's
you
like,
do.
well, we've never used these 6 rooms, but we do have a 7-bedroom house.
How many people? I can't tell you how many people I've seen who are just house poor, and that is. It's a business lesson. It's a life lesson.
It's business. It's life. And do you need it? I mean, it comes back to I've had people. I want to buy this piece of equipment. What's the return on investment?
Yeah.
Are you better off leasing it once a month? Do you really need to own it?
How long does it last? That piece of equipment.
That
they
piece
depreciate,
too.
Right? I mean,
and if I've got a 5-year loan, can I get it paid off in 3 years? Or if it's a 5-year loan, will the piece of equipment last for 7 or longer?
Right.
To Travis's building, can he build it out? And will will the renovations outlive what he paid to do them? That's the other thing we see. A lot of people, they'll get a lease that's shorter than the renovation cost. And it's like, well, you're building a cliff here. At some point you're going to fall off it.
Yeah. Yeah. I always think back when I was working in radio full time doing sales. We had the top, I was one of the top 4 sales guys here. Like, and the number 1 guy was driving a BMW, and the number 2 guy was driving a Lexus. Right. And I'm driving an old pickup truck. And I thought, you know what? I've made it. I'm doing good. Yeah. I'm going to go out. And I actually went down back when down on O Street, there was a Mercedes-Benz dealership, and I drive one around and I'm like, what am I doing? Because you have so many ebbs and flows within radio. Who am I buying this for? And ultimately didn't do it because it's like, why am I trying to keep up with people? Why am I putting on airs? And why am I going to go into the hole to impress somebody else? Live within your means. And I've taken that into our business, and it's helped me a ton.
Yeah,
That's cool.
The other thing on this is wherever you start, it's today. But think back, and hopefully we won't have it again. But COVID hit. It hit hard. The people that survived were those exact people, the ones that had days cash.
Mm-hmm.
And the government got the PPP program, the IDO program going, but it took 3 to 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody had 3 days cash, they probably didn't survive, or they barely did. Somebody had a month or 2 months cash, was able to survive on their days cash until they were able to get the support they needed. So
yeah,
it's the same principle. And if you're starting a business, you might have 2 days cash. The goal for next year is to have 4 days cash, then go to 8 days cash. You don't have to get there overnight. It's going to take time, but do plan that. And it's got to be legitimate plans by year
And don't
5.
rob from Peter to pay Paul. That
Yeah,
old
that
saying.
too.
You know, you
Yeah.
see that a lot.
Yeah, it's kind of like your own internal Ponzi scheme, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
But
Right.
I think back, you mentioned COVID, because we were doing fine during COVID, and we survived it obviously very well. But it was a gut check. What was it? A couple of months ago, there was the boat, the cruise ship that had some weird thing, and I'm like, oh, here we go again. And he's
Hantavirus or something, right?
yeah,
Whatever
something.
that is.
And-
It's like a Halloween disease.
Right. But as soon as I saw that, it's like you almost hit that panic, like,
Yep.
oh
Yeah.
man, am I in a position where I was when COVID hit?
This is happening again.
Yeah, because here we go again.
Yeah.
And I mean, luckily we're in good shape, and luckily for the world, it hasn't turned out into anything. Knock on wood. Is this wood? I'm knocking on whatever I can. But
Yes.
so
This is an old studio. There's wood everywhere.
there is wood everywhere in this studio. Well, this needs an adjustment. Let's go catch our last break here. And then when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more with Jim about Nebraska Enterprise Fund and how he can help small businesses. You're listening to Inside Business. Travis Filing, Gary Tharnish. We'll be back right after this.
Filing and Gary Tharnish.
And we're back for the last segment of Inside Business. Travis Filing, Gary Tharnish, talking with Jim Reiff, the executive director of the Nebraska Enterprise Fund. And in this last segment, let's just talk about, what you can do to help these small businesses. We've been talking the whole show about what you do to help small businesses, but how do people find you?
The best place is our website, www.nebbiz.org, and that's NEBBIZ.org. It's a little funny spelling, but think of it as Nebraska Biz, and you'll get there. So www.nebbiz.org, and our general line is 402-685-5500.
You never call. I never remember my phone number because I never call myself.
Well, I
Yeah.
got to make sure I don't give you my cell
Yeah.
phone. Because,
Well, also, it's like, hey, my phone will do this. But anyway, hey, SIRI, call Travis
Yeah,
Filing.
right.
That's what your number is to me.
yeah.
One thing we haven't talked about, I just want to make sure we cover it a little bit, is we've talked a lot about you're starting a business. What if I'm in the middle of a business, I'm scaling, I need growth funding? Are you there for that business owner as well?
We can be, and we actually have a product called the SSBCI, State Small Business Credit Initiative. Real quick, it's a U.S. Treasury product that came to the state of Nebraska, and us, Invest Nebraska, and a group called Omaha 100 are the three that are able to do that. For us to work with that, we need a bank that does about 50%. But to give you an idea, we've been able to go well over $1 million matching a bank. So,
Wow, nice.
and actually, Gary, I'm going to tell a little story. This is a client of ours. They came to us in 2017. A couple, she's brilliant. They do behavioral health for adults during daytime.
Okay, sure.
And they came to us and set up their first house, $40,000. And they got it going. They paid it off. We didn't think of it. We just said, hey, they've been successful. He's got his MBA now. She's a PhD. She does all kinds of, she's just brilliant. We got a call from one of our bankers, and our banker, Kendall, goes, Jim, I think I need help on this one. And they were buying real estate significant in the 7 digits and not bigger than a 1 in front, but I can't say more than that. And he said, I can do about 60%. These guys have a nice chunk of money, but I think we did about 32% of that deal. So they were growing. They went from just the husband and wife in 2017. In 2022, 2023, they had 40 employees.
Sure,
and moving to a much bigger facility. I don't know what their employee count is today, but so that's exactly, we need a bank to come alongside us in that case, or we come alongside the bank, I guess.
Sure.
But we're more than happy to, especially with this program, as long as it's around. We're all about growing businesses. So whatever stage that business is. The other way we can sometimes help is, it's not uncommon for us to start with a business and they end up needing to grow. Well, that's where a Rolodex helps. So, we can call up a bank. I've got banks in North Platte that we're more than happy to connect people with. We have Lincoln-based banks that we have Omaha-based, we have Norfolk-based bankers. It doesn't matter where you are. We'll find a bank or a banker. You don't have to work with them, but we're more than happy to make an introduction at least, so you can explore that.
Excuse me. So what about short terms? Did you guys do much short term?
We have to, because we're not a bank. We can't do the line of credit per se, which is the best short term.
Right. In
our opinion, we can underwrite a loan. So we could do an 18-month or 2-year loan for inventory or something. We get, if I'm honest, we get a little more clunky. It can be done. So if somebody came to us for that, the sooner you think you're going to need the funds, come to us before you need it. Us and most banks can't give you a loan yesterday.
Right.
So and my favorite clients are the ones that say, I need this, but I got 3 months out.
Yeah.
Or I got to have 4 months out, because then we can plan for it and we can get it into the pipeline.
Right.
Another question I would have is, let's say we have a listener that's listening and is thinking, I've always kind of wanted to start a business. They're kind of feeling spearheaded listening to this. If they go to your webpage, are there resources there to help them get started? Where should somebody in that realm of thinking go first?
Yeah, that's perfect. They're going to go to our webpage, fill out the application. There's places that it says apply here, but put in there that they want to start with a program called Growth Wheel.
Okay.
Because Growth Wheel has our client development team has put together the modules so that they can start writing a business plan with that.
Growth Wheel. Okay,
Growth
that's
Wheel,
cool.
We buy a subscription and are able to use that across the state. Free of charge to folks. Francisco does 2 classes a month on it. One on how do I write my business plan with Growth Wheel, and the second one, how do I use Growth Wheel to build my business.
That'd be a great place to start if you're listening and want to start a business.
Yeah.
Great place.
Yeah.
It's super. There's all kinds of modules. It's all free of cost. I think there's 19 different courses. So if you want to get a certificate, because some people, they need that. It really helps them when they can get a certificate. So there's 19 courses you can get certificates and so forth.
Another great thing this morning that I heard you say that's kind of, I want people not to forget, is your niche, and make sure that what you want to sell or whatever people want or will pay for.
Yes.
Want and pay for, and
2 different things.
We live in a rural state, and we're all here because of that.
Mm-hmm.
We love the lifestyle that we have, but some things just, it's hard to make go because there's not enough local market, unless you can get into online sales or create a situation where people will come in for your product.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we have all of those in Nebraska, but you got to be intentional about it. and you really have to create that market.
Well, and something else, don't ask your friends, right? Because I think back when I started a business and I'm like, I have this idea, and I went out and I talked to a bunch of my friends. Well, they're all going to support you. Yeah. They're all, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I'd sign up in a second. And then you build it. And guess what? Nobody, the old, you build it and they'll come. Yeah, no, that doesn't happen.
If you're going to ask your friend, what you ask your friend is for the deposit.
Yeah, exactly.
You're at Pawnee Lake selling surfboards. I'm next to you selling paddle boards. I'm making a mint. You're sitting there going,
Yeah, but all my friends said surfboards would be great.
Yeah, but if Travis would have asked for the deposit on the surfboard,
that's right.
Sold them.
They would have said, "Are you kidding? You're nuts." I love it.
So, do you see anything that business owners should be paying attention to as far as loans go in the next 5-10 years?
In 5-10 years out, I recommend that people think where they want to be. Because that's really your big, hairy, audacious goal time frame.
Yeah.
So worry about the loans the next 2 to 5 years, but where do you want to be in 5 years, 10 years, even 20 years out? Do you want to be turning this over to your kids?
Yeah,
or do you want to be selling this? Or do you want to be retiring and getting a commission? What's your goal? And that's so longer term. That's what I'd start to get people thinking at. Because the other thing that's going to force you to think about is, how do I make sure I'm a success?
Yeah.
So start with the end in mind.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yes. And
please.
That 1, 3, 5, and 10 year plan, do them every year, because that 3, 5, and 10, they're always going to change.
And that business plan is a living document. It doesn't collect dust. Every quarter, take it out and make sure you're still on track.
Yeah. So webpage again is nebbiz.org, and look for Growth Wheel in there. Apply if you want to start a business and have ideas.
Fantastic. Well, you've been listening to Inside Business. Travis Filing, Gary Tharnish. We've been talking with Jim Reiff from the Nebraska Enterprise Fund. And one more time, it's nebbiz.org. So thanks for listening. We will see you guys next week.
Thanks, Jim.